Hey guys, my name's Morgan and today I'm going to be talking about some of the games that I played in the month of August. Now, if I happen to have mentioned these games in more detail in another video, I'll make sure that there's a link available if you're interested in seeing that. All right, without further ado, let's dive in. This is going to be a pretty quick video where I just sort of give my impressions, because a lot of these games I've only played like a handful of times, some more than others, and some I've played quite a bit. So yeah, let's dive into it anyway. So Jabba's Palace was the first game that I played in August, and Jabba's Palace is a love letter style game. It's just re-themed for Star Wars. And it's very cool, it's very thematic. It takes place in that whole episode 6 where they're infiltrating Jabba's palace to save Han Solo. And you're trying to do a few different things, because the difference between this and traditional Love Letter had it that if at the end of the game, or the end of the round, sorry, to score a point, you'd either have to knock out everyone else or have the highest valued card in your hand. And the game sort of flips that on its head a little bit. You can still eliminate all other players to score a point, but if you don't manage to do that, there is a different sort of objective that you need to match to be able to get that. One of them checks what type of cards that you have in front of you. In this game, the cards are divided into two different factions. So you've got the Rebel Alliance and the Hutt Cartel cards, your orange and your green cards, right? And there are a lot more of the Hutt Cartel cards, and the Rebel Alliance ones tend to be fewer and rarer, but also a little bit better sometimes, unless you've got like C-3PO, who's a bit of a, not C-3PO is not much of a fighter, so it makes a lot of sense. I really like this game. It's a nice little re-theme of the original one. It's not just a reskin, it does feel a little different. Some of the cards have different abilities. Like for instance, the Rancor. The Rancor asks you to call out anyone, have a 1, and you keep calling out numbers from 1 till whatever, and whoever has the lowest number card, apart from 0, which there is a 0 power card in the game, and you eliminate people that way. And it's quite funny because in the game I played this month, someone played the Rancor and eliminated myself and the other person at the same time. So they won the round straight up with 1 card, which is pretty funny because we happen to have the same power level card. Yeah, it's really cool. The 0 cost card, or the 0 power card, I should say, if you're wondering, is Han Solo. And if you manage to hold on to him at the end of the round, you'll gain a victory point. So you could potentially gain 2 victory points if you were the last man standing and you had Han Solo as well. So I really like Jabba's Palace. It's a nice quick game, and the game says that you sort of aim to get like 5 points or whatever, depending on your player count, but I kind of like just to throw it out there and just play a round or 2. Don't even worry about scoring the whole thing, you know what I mean? Just for a bit of quick fun, because it's very easy to get into. Sometimes it's nice just to pull out if you're still waiting on someone to come to game night. So yeah, before things get started or in between games even. So yeah, I really like this one. Okay, the next game we're talking about is Dinogenics, and I happened to play this at the same day. And Dinogenics is a really cool worker placement game, very much inspired by Jurassic Park, creating your own dinosaur theme park. And the components of the game are really, really nice. There's a lot of wooden meeples, I guess, but they're dinosaurs. And you use those to sort of keep track of what dinosaurs you have in your park. You have these enclosures that you build out of these wooden fences as well, and it's really fun just to be able to shift things around and look at it when you're done and see what kind of park you created. It's really cool. I love it just for that fact, but there is a really nice game behind it as well. One thing I should note about the game, I enjoy the game, but there is a problem that seems to come up every now and again. The way that the game works in terms of scoring, you want to get dinosaurs out into your park as early as possible, because the game will score from round to round based on what dinosaurs you have out, right? So you're very much encouraged to get those dinosaurs out early, as quickly as possible, so that you're scoring from the earlier rounds, and they keep scoring. At the end of every round, you're getting points for that dinosaur and every other dinosaur you have. So you want to get them out really fast. So if someone does get a really lucky draw, and the way you build these dinosaurs is you have to have matching cards. You're collecting cards, the DNA cards, to create these dinosaurs. And you could get lucky. You could just have what you need on the first turn. Happens from time to time. It's very hard to do with those bigger, high point dinosaurs, especially like your brontosauruses and stuff like that, because they're actually larger than your hand limit, or larger than your starting hand size, I should say. So it's not a huge problem for that fact, but you know, sometimes they do just get that one step ahead, and because the way of the scoring works, you could get this snowball effect where it makes it very hard to catch up. That's just something that's come up every once in a while, but I still really enjoy the game. And one thing that I've sort of thought about and learnt from my last play of this game is that the game very much encourages you to take risks. And it makes a lot of sense, like seeing how the scoring happens, because if you want to do well in the beginning, you've just got to push out those dinosaurs, even if you don't have the correct enclosure for them, or if you don't have the goats to feed them, feeding the carnivores anyway. So what will happen if you don't meet that requirement? Well, at the end of the round, if you don't satisfy the enclosure requirement or the feeding requirement of your carnivores, then they start to rampage. And what you do is you pick up this dice and you roll it, and what will happen is either it's a 6-sided die, so 2 of the faces are it destroys a piece of equipment. So it could blow up a building, or it could blow up a wall, or it could actually destroy a hotel, and if you really don't want them to get at people inside those hotels, because anyone inside those hotels are killed, and you really need those visitors to leave the island safely, so you get points for that. Otherwise, you get nothing. And there's also another downside to that, is if those people die, you get these scandal tokens, which is a big penalty. They're -6 points. But let's go through the other ones as well. There's a 3 in 6 chance that you could also just lose someone, like someone will get eaten alive. And there's a 1 in 6 chance that instead, nothing bad will happen, and everyone else just thinks it was part of the show. Like, oh man, that T-Rex was running around, it was crazy. And they actually tip you, you get money. So it's quite funny. You could absolutely stuff up the requirement, just throw the dice, and 1 in 6, you might actually get paid for stuffing up, which is pretty funny. So I've been thinking about how this game sort of snowballs and that sort of mechanism, and it makes a bit of sense to just really just go for it and get your dinosaur out there, even if you don't have the food or enclosure for it, because the points you get at that beginning round, or the whatever round you get it in, if you get it a round earlier than you normally would have because you didn't have the right enclosure or whatever, you're actually getting enough points, I think, to be able to mitigate what actually happens, even if you fail that roll. So that's what I've been thinking about. The scandal tokens, they're -6 points. That does sound like a lot, and it is. It is a lot of minus points. But there's a lot of ways also to get rid of scandal tokens. So it's not the end of the world if you get them. Like there's at least one space on the board that you can go to. You can trade in your scandal token to do something else. There are cards you can play that allow you to get rid of them as well. So yeah, it's not the end of the world if you do get one. So very much, if you want to do well in this game, I would recommend taking risks and just going for it, pushing those dinosaurs out there as quickly as possible. Yeah, Dinogenics, great game. Check it out. The next game that I'm going to be talking about is from an Australian designer. I've played it quite a few times this month because I'm planning on releasing a video very, very soon to do a bit of a look at and a review of the game. And this is an abstract game, very much in the style of chess, where you have these pyramids on your board. They're your pieces. And as you're moving them around, they're going to flip and change to different, like whatever corner is facing upward determines what sort of power, what movement your pieces have. And this is a really thinky sort of game. There's a lot of moments where you're sitting there going, oh man, what do I do next? Where do I go from here? That kind of thing. Because you're trying to outthink your opponent and you're trying to think kind of 2-3 steps ahead of them. And if I go here and he takes my piece, do I have something else to sort of revenge shot it back and stuff like that? Quite fun game. It's not necessarily my style of game, but I can see a lot of people really liking this game. It's one of those games where there's a high ceiling for skill. If you keep playing this game, you're going to get really, really good at it. And you'll start to become more and more aware of how pieces can move and what options you have available to you and stuff like that. The components were also quite nice as well. Yeah, so a review will be coming up very, very soon. If that is up, you can see the link on the screen right now and that will take you straight to it. All right, the next game that we're talking about is Survival of the Fattest, and this is another one by an Australian designer, by Dirty Rascal Games, I think. Ugh, I hope so. Anyway, Survival of the Fattest will have you take on the role of a woodland creature who's trying to fill their belly before winter comes. And this game uses sort of worker placement and deck building, but it does it a little bit differently than you might expect. It's not similar at all to Lost Ruins of Arnak or Dune Imperium at all, but the idea is the worker placement part of the game is very, very simple. There's only 6 spots, I believe, you can even go to. And 3 of those spots will have you foraging for food in the wilds. And there's no restriction to how many people can go to a particular spot. In fact, sometimes it's quite beneficial to go to the same spot, because what will happen is you have these cards called foraging cards from your hand that you'll play. And these determine how many of these cards are revealed from a spot that you go to. And what you'll do is you'll draft those cards. Whoever played the most foraging cards will be able to draft their piece of food first. And not all the stuff in the decks is good. If you have fewer foraging cards than other players, cards that come up called traps, they can be -1 points if they end up in your, what you call stash, which I'll explain in just a little bit. And you're trying to collect the correct food to complete these recipes, and this is how you score points. And you also need to fulfill your character's requirement, because if you don't flip them, if you don't feed them before the end of the game, then they will die and you will not be counted towards the winning scoring, right? And an additional benefit to flipping your card is you get an extra ability, which is really cool. I like that. So this stash pile that I briefly mentioned, this is cards that you've sort of stowed away out of your deck, and you do that by going to different locations, or you got card actions that allow you to do it. All the critters are different. They have their own asymmetric trick cards that you can play. There's only 3 of them in your starting deck, so you've still got 10 cards. 7 of them are just basic foraging cards, and then you've got 3 tricks which can do extra abilities. And the stash is also used to cash in recipes, but it's a little bit different to what you're doing on the board, because if you manage to complete recipes on the board, then you'll also gain points as well as an additional ability, which is very handy. I enjoyed this game quite a bit, and I kept playing it because I wanted to explore the asymmetry between the characters. Initially, when I was playing the game, I felt like a lot of the characters weren't balanced, but it turned out that I was actually getting quite a bit of the rules wrong. The presentation of the rulebook is really, really good. However, some of the information, there's some crucial sort of wording missing in some of the sections that make you sort of go, how am I meant to play this? Fortunately, the creator of the game is very, very active on BGG. So if you jump on there and ask your questions, he answers them straight away. I've answered one, I've asked a question, sorry, already, and he answered it like very, very quickly. So I was able to get my answer. I still need to play this a few more times to sort of gauge whether I feel like the game is balanced from all characters. Just because we were playing the game wrong the first few times. But I did play the solo mode, and I felt like the solo mode was very, very brutal. The way the character works is you flip a card and then they do an action. So a lot of automas operate this way, but the automa gains points like almost every turn, and it's quite wild how many points it gets. And you're often only scoring like every second, third turn, because you actually need to get the resources to be able to score, and then you have to go to the place to cash in the card and stuff like that, or to gain a recipe card so you can do it later. And I found like, I don't know, maybe I got it wrong, maybe I'm not playing it right, but it felt like I just couldn't win the automa, and I played the easiest one to do, and I just got brutalized, doubled my score, like absolutely killed me. So yeah, I don't know what went wrong there. I might revisit it, might not, I don't know. I felt like I was following the rules, but again, sometimes those rules aren't super clear, but the multiplayer of this game is where this game shines. It's nothing like your deck building worker placements of, like I said, Dune, Imperium, Lost Ruins, or Arnak. You're gonna get more game in those ones. This one is takes around the same amount of time, but it's just a sort of lighter sort of game, but very enjoyable still. And that's Survival of the Fattest. All right, the next game I played was Vindication, and Vindication is a game where you are a horrible person and you're trying to redeem yourself. And there is this cool board that you have with cubes on it. You're gonna hear the word cubes so many times in this game because everything is cubes, right? And you have your sort of available cubes. You have cubes that are like your potential, unlocked potential. And you've got cubes that sort of are more powerful and can do more powerful things. I can't remember what it's called, but you can use them to take over locations and stuff like that, which you normally couldn't do with your big set of cubes in the middle of the board. There's a lot of exchanging of cubes. So I go here, so I can put my cubes into this sort of aspect. There are these different sort of circles around the board, and these represent sort of qualities of a person. So like wisdom, knowledge, strength, all those types of things. And you're trying to fill those up, and you are moving to different locations so you can exchange those cubes for cards. And those cards give you special abilities and stuff like that. One thing I should note, that when we played this game, we didn't play it the correct way. I was taught by a friend, and he was sort of managing the game. And what was meant to happen is that you have these cards, and they determine when the game will finish. If you fulfill whatever's on the card, then you finish that round, and then that's it. You're meant to start with a few of those cards out, but my friend, he wanted to play a longer game, so we didn't have any of those out. And I felt like the game really dragged. It sort of, I sort of lost a few points for the game there in the sense that it just dragged on and I was just ready for it to be done. Like, I think I spent maybe half an hour of that time going, oh, come on, just finish, just finish this game. And for me, the theme of the game felt very dry. I understand that I'm a person who's trying to redeem themselves. You know, I'm a whole awful person, but that theme just didn't come across in this game. Like, I understand I'm putting cubes into different aspects of my personality, but like, it just felt like I was just walking around trading stuff. Like, I'm just trading wisdom for a relic, I think it was, which is a card with an ability. And it's just like, I'm just doing this because it's got points on it. You know what I mean? I don't really care about, like, some of those abilities, don't get me wrong, are helpful and you can sort of combo off them, but you only, another thing is you only have one of those sort of cards face up. So you don't really know what's available to you and you can't really sort of build around it as well. So you either take that one or you take a lucky chance or whatever's on top. You can spend one of your stronger cubes. Remember how I said you had different cubes in different spots, your stronger cubes. You can spend those and that will let you look at a few of the cards so you can actually make a better decision. But those cards are so hard to come by and it's kind of like, do I want to spend it that way? Or would I rather spend them to gain locations? Because every time someone visits my location, I get points for that. So it feels like I'm losing out on that opportunity if I do it that way. Yeah, this one, I wouldn't say no to playing it again, but I would rather play something else. It didn't really do much for me. And yeah, that's Vindication. The next game I played was Clever Forever, and this is one of the sequels to That's Pretty Clever. It's a roll and write dice game. So you have these colored dice and you're rolling them and you're selecting one of these dice to activate something on your player sheet and you're crossing things off. And it's one of those games where if you're familiar with That's Pretty Clever, the mechanisms, although are a bit different, like what you're trying to do with the different colored dice are different, but the actual premise of the game, very, very similar. You are crossing things off to try and get abilities that will cross off additional squares and get you more points, essentially. You're trying to cross off as much as you can. And if you are, you can also get these like extra scoring potential, like these red foxes. So those red foxes will score whatever category that you have the fewest points in again. So you very much incentivize not to lean into just one color or one or two colors. You want to spread it out as much as you can and get as many points as you can. And this game, I liked it. It was very fun. I played a lot of That's Pretty Clever back in the day. And this one was different enough to make it interesting, but in the long term, I don't know, I'll probably figure out which one I want to keep more, just because for what they are, the box is a little bit big. Yeah, but perhaps, I mean, like they're different enough that I enjoy them both and I might like that variant, so I may keep them both, I don't know. But yeah, that's Clever Forever. The next game I'm talking about is a very small game, filler game. It's called Skate Park. And this game, I played only solo so far, and I haven't played it with anyone else, and I don't know how many people will be keen to play with me. Perhaps my kids will be interested in playing, because it's a very simple game. The idea is that you are trying to gain like victory points, I guess, by claiming different obstacles of a skate park. And to do that, you need to play cards from your hand that match the kind of tricks that you can do on that particular obstacle. And what you do then is you play the card, right? But that's not enough. You have to roll to sort of see if you succeed in your trick. And the different tricks that you play have different sort of difficulties in rolling to success. So for example, you might have just a card that has an option between two different tricks and you go, oh, I'm going to do the easier one just to get 1 point, right? And whoever can score the most points on a particular obstacle will put that in front of them and they will score for that obstacle. And whoever has the most obstacles at the end is the winner. In the solo mode of this game, the automa has these predetermined already what symbols are going to come up in their dice. So they don't roll the dice, it's just whatever it says happens, and they're guaranteed to fail one trick. And I should also note with the cards is that the cards all have different values, and of course, you know, the higher ones are harder to do, but then you've also got ones that you need to roll twice, and some of them you have to combine the trick to do it properly. So you have to do like the top and bottom part of a card. So you're rolling twice in that instance as well. The game was fine. I think this is something that you can just sort of take it or leave it. It's like another filler game that you could play in between games. It would take you like 10 minutes, if that. It's very, very quick, very easy to play. Probably good with young children, I think, because you really don't have to think about anything. You just go, I'm going to play this card because you've already played a 1. I need to play a 2 to beat it. Let's see if I get it. No, I didn't get it. So that's essentially what you're doing. So not much game there, but that skate park. Whoops, doing this part again because the camera died, but that's okay. So the next game on the list is Fuse, and this is a game I played quite a few times this month. I played it by myself and with a mate as well. And the idea of this game is a real-time game where you have a bag full of dice that you are pulling out and throwing on the table. To win the game, you have to be able to use those dice to complete cards in front of you within 10 minutes. You only have 10 minutes to do this. And there's a lot of different sort of things you have to complete. For example, like the requirements of the card might have a mathematical expression that you have to complete. For example, you might need to put one die higher than another one, and maybe it has to be a particular color. They're all different colored dice. Or you might have to stack dice in a particular order, and because this is a fast-paced sort of game, you have to be very careful placing them. If you knock down a tower, then you've got to start again. It really holds you back. There are sort of all different types of rules that you're trying to fulfill to be able to satisfy the card and then move on to the next one. And I found this game as a solo player very, very difficult because you'd be there, you'd roll these dice and you have all these cards out in front of you, and it's on you to be able to decide where those dice need to go. And whenever you can't satisfy, like whenever you can't place a dice anywhere, you have to roll it. And if that number or color matches any of the dice on your board, you have to remove one of them, and it sets you back even more. I found this game was much, much easier with one other person because you sort of divide that cognitive load. So they've got their cards, I've got my cards. We roll the dice and we have to divvy them up. We have to communicate with each other and talk about, okay, well, I can really use this dice, and that means I'll be able to complete this card and I get a new one, and I could maybe take this other one that we're having trouble taking and stuff like that. So much, much easier with the when you're working with other people, and it is a cooperative game. You're not working against each other. And like playing with another person meant that I actually was winning the game. When I was playing solo, I just lost back to back. I got very, very close a few times. I did win one game. These cards all have different difficulty values. So scoring 1, 2, 3, or 4 points. The 4-point ones are the hardest to fulfill. And because I lost so many times, I just wanted to see if I could actually beat the game. So I took out the 4s just for a game to see if I could do it, and I did, and I actually did it very, very quickly. But it didn't feel like a real win because, you know, I sort of handicapped the game in a sense. So, but playing with another person meant that I could play at those more difficult challenge levels, which meant more cards were introduced and you had to complete them in that same span of time. And it was really fun. It's a nice game to pull out for 10 minutes. It takes 10 minutes of your time and you're jumping into it. And it's the app as well that times you. It's quite funny. It has this voiceover that's sort of mocking you and throwing jabs at you, like, you know, critiquing your bomb defusing abilities. And it's quite fun. It's a nice little touch to the game. I thought it was really fun, and that was Fuse. All right, and the last game I'm going to be talking to you about is Kinoko. And this is a very small, unassuming game. I bought it on a whim. It was $7 on clearance. I thought, why not? But this one actually gave me a nice surprise. I really enjoyed this game. If I had to describe it, it would be similar to like a shell game, like where you have those cups and there's hidden money there and you're shuffling those cups around. You have to guess where the money is. So it's similar to that game in the sense that there's hidden information and you have to figure out where particular cards are at any given time. So the way this game works is all the cards have a number on the back and on the front, so the same number. So you'll have a 1, 2, and a 3 card, and everyone has a 1, 2, and a 3. But on the other side of the card is a color. And you'll also be given at random and in secret a card color. And you're trying to gather those cards of one color into someone's hand. It doesn't matter whose hand it's in. It could be in your opponent's hand, your hand, and there's also a dummy player, or potentially more than one dummy player, depending on how many players you've got playing the game. And you'll be shifting those cards around, and the way you do that is going to be rolling some dice. So you're rolling 3 dice, and one of the most common occurrences coming up with the dice, you choose one of the faces, and one of the common occurrences is a number that will come up. So it could be 1, 2, or 3, and if that comes up, you're simply swapping a card from either your hand, someone else's hand, the dummy hand. Let's say a 1 came up, you can swap a 1 between 2 different players. And essentially you're trying to gather all those cards of one color into one person's hand. And you can be a bit sneaky about it because the dummy players in front of you, their cards are face down, so you cannot see those cards there. And also the cards in your hand are facing away from you. So you cannot see what's in your hand, but you can use that against other people as well. So you could be gathering cards in another player's hand and they have no idea that you're sorting their colors for them. You know what I mean? So that's really cool. So if you manage to, or maybe you think you've managed to gather that hand of 3 cards, right? You call out, I think I've made a family, and everyone checks their hands. We all flop them out and see if we've managed to gather 3 of a color. And if it's your color, you get 2 points. If someone else was able to do it successfully without even being aware of it, they're also going to get 2 points. Now, if you call it out and you actually haven't been successful in doing that, every other player is instead going to get 1 point. And when we're dealt colored cards at the very beginning, we're also dealt a poison card as well. So if you have a card in your hand matching that poison color, you're going to lose a point as well. So if at the very least you're not going to win with your by gathering your colors together, you can at least slow down your opponent by trying to give them a poison color, so that if they win, they're only getting 1 point out of it. Right? You get a negative points when you have that poison color in your hand. So I thought this was really fun. It was a very quick game. I think about 10 minutes or so to play it, maybe 15. Can be much shorter if like they're all very localized within each other. But yeah, really fun game, and that was Kinoko. All right, guys, well, that is all the new games that I've played in August. And yeah, there was a few winners in that bunch. A couple that I didn't like so much, but all in all, a pretty good month for me, I think. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. It really helps the video out, making sure that other people can see it also. All right, thanks guys, and have a good one.